All right, everybody, back with another one. We got a lot going on with the Epstein stuff. A lot of people in the MAGA base are divided right now. A lot of them are turning against Trump because of everything that's going on. And there's definitely some clear signs of either a cover up or there's absolutely no more to the case that they're able to disclose because they don't have the files. And that could mean either there are no more files because there never was, or they were destroyed in order to protect the guilty parties. So that's pretty much what we have now. That's pretty much what this has come down to. So we're going to take a look at some stuff today, and we're actually going to get into some actual documents from the court cases that were going on, specifically in regards to Ghislaine Maxwell, because she's still alive right now, and she's coming out saying that she would like to testify or come out with some information. We're going to look at her deposition from 2016 and some of the stuff that she had to say, which you will see that it's probably not going to be what the people are expecting, what you are hoping to hear. And there may not be anything that ever comes out from Ghislaine Maxwell, possibly, but she's claiming, apparently, people in the media are saying that she's claiming that she is ready to come out now and talk, which is kind of a interesting situation because her court documents, there is evidence that she was involved in this conspiracy with Jeffrey Epstein, but her deposition is pretty solid. Her lawyers clearly primed her well on how to respond to these, questions and really not give the opposing counsel enough information to incriminate herself. And the evidence that they had was enough to, arrest her and convict her and put her away for whatever she's in for. I think it's 20 years. And there's an interesting situation going on with the conservatives, especially because many of them are saying, well, if Jeffrey Epstein didn't do anything wrong and there's nothing that he was actually guilty of, Ghislaine Maxwell shouldn't be in jail because she was his accomplice, and if he's not guilty of anything, then she can't be guilty of anything, which makes perfect sense. But then you also have a couple different situations with this where a lot of conservatives are saying that the Republicans recently voted unanimously not to release the Jeffrey Epstein files, but then Marjorie Taylor Greene was just on somebody's podcast recently. I think it was Benny Johnson's, actually, and she said that there's actually a gray area there because it's the type of voting that they do in that case. It's not accurate to say that the Republicans didn't vote or voted against this because of the way that the voting works. We won't get into all of this today because there's a lot going on in the media. There's something new coming out constantly where it's adding fuel to the fire. But basically, we're breaking it down into just a few key points that I don't think many people in the media so far have made, and some supporting documents for that that's really not being, shown on other people's podcasts, at least that I've seen. So hopefully this will be a little bit of a different take or just adding to the conversation and my assessment of the situation and my assessment of the situation. So let's jump into a video first of Alan Dershowitz, who I believe was the lawyer for Jeffrey Epstein at one point, and his take on it. And then we'll get into what Trump had to say and then some of the documents from the court.
Be suspicious. But you are misplacing that suspicion if you think that Trump's DOJ has the goods and is just not showing you. Professor, thank you for coming back from Italy. Thank you for coming on this. And I want people to know that, yes, I am incredibly biased where Professor Dershowitz is. I am a friend and he is a mentor of mine, but I have spoken to numerous attorneys who have represented people on all sides of the Epstein scandal. None has said anything different than what you are about to say to the audience. So, is the government hiding a client list or anything that the Trump administration could release tonight?
No, there is no client list. There never has been a client list. A client list suggests that Jeffrey Epstein made a list of people to whom he trafficked women. What there is a redacted FBI affidavit from accusers. There are several of them from accusers that accuse Jeffrey, that accuse various people of having improper sex. And that has been redacted. The names of the people accused have been blacked out. Now, of course, because I was the lawyer and I did only investigations, I know who all these people are. I could figure out, based on everything that I saw, who Mr. X is, Mr. Y is, and Mr. Z. I can tell you right now, none of them are public figures who are currently in office. Some of them were previously in office. Some of them are dead. But there is no client list. And the redactions could be undone if you go to court. So many of the things that are being suppressed by 2 judges in Manhattan. And they're doing it largely to protect the alleged accusers who are, in the view of the judges, victims, even though we don't know what their actual status is. But the judges have issued orders, which is why I can't disclose things I'd love to disclose, saying that you can't disclose this information. But Pam Bondi and the Justice Department and Donald Trump are not responsible for that. I don't know of any information that they could disclose that they haven't disclosed. Now, maybe there is some, but I'm simply not aware of it. And so I think it's important to place the blame where the blame deserves to be placed. The vast majority of people who are in the files, and I know them all, I've seen all the names, the vast majority of them have already been disclosed. They're in articles all over the world. They're in books that have been written. So if we got everything, you would be shocked how few names are there that haven't already been disclosed. The media hasn't, by the way, done a good enough job in finding the people who have been disclosed in the public record. So that's that list. Then there's the videotapes. People say there must be sex tapes. I know the whole story there. There is a videotape, maybe several videotapes. They came under the following circumstances. Before any of this happened, Epstein was robbed by one of his employees of money and of a licensed gun. And he called the Palm Beach police, and they installed video cameras, not in the bedrooms, but in the living room. And those video cameras recorded some people, but there's no sexual allegations there. So there's nothing to that. And then there's Tucker Carlson's absurd allegations about the Mossad. There I know it from very, very personal experience. Why? Jeffrey Epstein. I asked him about everything, including whether he had any contacts with intelligence agencies. If he had, he would have been dying to tell me that, because I could have used that to get him a better deal. If he had worked with the Mossad or the CIA, that would have been golden for me. But of course he said no. And then I checked it with my sources in Israel. Let me clear. I once represented the Mossad when 5 Israeli Mossad agents were captured in Cyprus. The head of the Mossad asked me to represent them. I did. I got them out, and the Mossad sent me a congratulatory note. I'm friendly with many of the people who have been heads of the Mossad. I'm not going to tell you who my sources are, but I can tell you with absolute certainty he had no connections to Mossad. He only got connected to Israel very late in this, when he met Ehud Barak and he made business dealings with him. But there was no connection to Mossad. The reason that story generated is because his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, probably did have a connection to Mossad, Robert Maxwell, but it had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. And as far as the suicide is concerned, of course it was a suicide, but it was a suicide, I believe, assisted by jailers. It was not a suicide that he could have committed alone. I think the jailers had something to do with his cellmate being dismissed, with the cameras being turned off. So there are things that can be hidden, but there's no smoking gun here, and there's no fault on the part of this administration, as far as I can tell.
So, Professor, we both know, like, the answer to why Carlson and these other guys are now using Epstein as an article of convenience is because it works. For them to say he's a Mossad agent, it's a great way to advance and keep relevant the anti-Zionist movement that's going on right now. Sure. I've never seen conservatives This Charlie Kirk thing that they just did, it used to be puzzling to me why the evangelicals loved Israel so much until I understood the whole nature of the rapture and all this second passion and all this stuff. But now you've got this wing of conservatism that seems to be matching this wing of liberalism where they all hate Israel. So Tucker's riding that wave, and this is now an article of convenience for him with Epstein. But what I don't understand is why doesn't Bondi say what you just said? I get why the president doesn't want to own this, frankly, but why doesn't she say, it's not on me? What I had on my list is this FBI thing that's redacted that I thought I could get unredacted, but I can't. I got to go to court, and I'd have to fight it out with these two judges, and it's not going to be easy. Why doesn't she just say that?
Well, I think she should say it. There may be reasons why she can't say it because there are restrictions on what an attorney general can say about potentially pending cases. But I think there's enough that she could say. And I think it's true if she said that there are these judges. Now, maybe the answer is she should go along with the media and make applications to the judges to unredact and to make these things public. And maybe your station should do the same thing and other stations, because I don't think this should be kept. As you know, from day one, I said everything should be disclosed. I waive all my rights of privacy. I waive all my rights of confidentiality, anything. Please disclose everything, because I knew that disclosing everything would, of course, exculpate me. And they haven't. And so I'd like to see everything come out now. Now, here's one problem. So you have people who accuse other people. We don't know how many of those are true, how many of those are false. So if you're going to disclose the names of people accused, you also have to disclose information about the accusers. And the judges don't want to do that because they want to protect the victims. And that's right. And so you can't have it one way.
Professor Dershowitz, thank you very much. I wish everybody would just listen to you tonight and take it as fact, but we know this is just too tantalizing. You're going to get dismissed as an agent of AIPAC and of Israel, and it's all nonsense. But look, all we can do is tell them the truth. Thank you for putting out there from what you know. And again, I've talked to people who represented victims in this. I've talked to people who represent players in this. And I'm telling you, nobody has said anything different than what Dershowitz just said, just for whatever it's worth. Professor, thank you for being on. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so there you have it. Alan Dershowitz, the legal counsel for Jeffrey Epstein, gave his essentially testimony on Chris Cuomo's show. And a couple things I wanted to take away that I did take away from that was, number one, and you'll see this, I might cover it in the deposition when I go over it. If not, any of the documents that I go over today, if you want copies of them for yourself, or you want the links to be able to go view them yourself and read them online, because we're not going to read everything. The deposition alone is like 500 pages, and there's other documents as well that I'm not going to get into today, but they're all several hundred pages, so you're talking thousands of pages of documents. If you want copies of anything or links to anything, just direct message me or comment on the actual video, and I will post it. I will either post it right there in the comments for everybody to have, or I will just send you exactly what document you're looking for, where to find those documents. So anything that you want to see today, just let me know and I'll try and get it to you. I do that because I think it's good for people to read and do their own research, their own due diligence, instead of just hearing from people on the internet. So it's definitely important for you to do your own research as well. Not everybody has the time to, be digging through hundreds of pages of documents on some conspiracy that doesn't really affect them. But I understand when people, certain people out there want the transparency and they want to know where the person that they're watching online is getting the information from. So if you want those documents, just let me know and I'll try and get them to you. But a couple things I took away from that was Alan Dershowitz specifically called Ghislaine Maxwell Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend. And in the deposition that I read, she states that they did not have that type of relationship, or she alludes to that that she just worked for him as a, assistant or whatever. And so there's a contradiction there. Maybe Alan knows more about the situation, or, that from Jeffrey's standpoint, he considered her a girlfriend, and from her standpoint, she just considered herself a, business employee. But that is a important takeaway, because it takes her relationship with him beyond just work colleagues. So she would actually know a lot more information than she's alluding to in the deposition. If she's saying now that she's coming out, or she's ready to come out, she's ready to start talking about this stuff, then she lied when she gave that deposition, which means she perjured herself, which means that she would be charged with additional crimes and likely not released and not given a reduced sentence for giving this new information. So I don't know how much of a gain it would be for her to actually come out, give all of a sudden now have a tell-all about this stuff that she should have said a while ago. And, clearly it didn't work for her. So I don't know if she's going to come out. And I don't know if she's actually going to admit anything new and damning that the public has not already seen, or that has not already been made public with her deposition and the court cases that went on. So the point I'm making is, don't be surprised if this is media hype right now about people saying that she's coming out with the breaking information. I don't really see it at this point in time. If she could have, she probably would have already done it, because now she's in prison. So if she knew she was about to be convicted, she probably would have told her lawyer anything that she could have to get herself a reduced sentence or get out of jail entirely and serve in some other way. So I don't think that she's going to, but we'll see in the coming weeks and months if this actually happens. The other thing is that Epstein did commit suicide, but he points out a very key part of all this, because there are people who say he didn't commit suicide, he was killed, because there's a gap in the video. I think there is about a 3-minute gap now or something like that. I'm not exactly sure of the exact time, but there's about a few minute gap in the video. And so they're saying during that time, somebody went in and killed him. And then other people, Cash Patel and Dan Bongino included, are saying he absolutely killed himself. Well, so there's a third option, which does happen sometimes, where in these high profile situations, you will have people who are involved, who have the upper hand, they have the leverage over that person. Tell the person, you don't want me to kill you. They won't say these exact words, but they'll basically paint them a picture and say, like, you wouldn't want me to kill you because it's going to be violent and aggressive. And that's going to be your last, moments of life. But also, you are not going to be able to stay alive because of what information you have, and we can't run the risk of it getting out. So the third option is, in a kinder, gentler way, quote unquote, you take yourself out, but you get to do it in a way that is comfortable for you, right? So they sort of coax the person into, this is the best possible scenario. You're going to get killed either way because we're going to kill you, and you're not going to get to stay alive anyway. So the third option is, instead of us killing you, you kill yourself. That way, there's no additional case opened up around this situation where now they're investigating a murder, because then that actually adds to the fact that there's something deeper with this and there are other people involved. Because if somebody is not actually doing what the public or whoever believes they're guilty of, then nobody would want to kill them because this person was in it alone. But if somebody kills somebody, they know there's other parties involved, there's a conspiracy, and a lot of what the people online are saying is true. So they give this person a different option where they get to do what's inevitable, but they get to do it in a way that feels best for them. And this is when the person's backed into the corner, because you're not gonna be able to sell somebody on killing themselves unless if they felt they had no other options. So it's likely that at that time, he probably was at the point where he couldn't take it anymore. He didn't want to be in prison. He saw no path forward. He saw no path out of this. And he saw that he was going to spend the rest of his life in prison and rot, or take himself out and go wherever people go when they die. It's possible that Allen's correct in that the third option happened, which would make Cash Patel and Dan Bongino also correct in that, and they're both law enforcement type people, right? They come from those backgrounds of that type of stuff. Really, more Cash Patel was a lawyer, but he's in the legal world, and Dan Bongino was in law enforcement. So, and now they both are in the FBI. So for them to both say, no, we looked at this, he killed himself, they're not lying. They might also know that there's enough evidence that it was an assisted suicide or that he was coerced into it and just not admit that because they're admitting the main truth. So it's a way for them to get out to the public that we're not lying, we're telling you the truth. We're just not telling you the whole truth. But it's possible that Alan's right in this sense that, and also Dan Bongino and the other people who said that he did kill himself are all correct, but they're not giving you the whole story that it was likely an assisted suicide, but we just don't have enough evidence to confirm that. And even if we, did, we have no idea who was whoever who convinced him to do that. So there's probably something there with that. And if there is, it definitely screams conspiracy because why would you want someone killed for a crime that they committed alone, right? Unless it incriminated you as well or other people involved that you're working on behalf of. So it's possible that it was an assisted suicide, but again, we'll probably never be able to prove it unless there were actual cameras on the jail cell at that time and there's no glitch in the cameras, there's no issues, and maybe even testimony from some of the people that were in the surrounding area that might have seen some things. And then the third thing is, which I think is the most important take that's overlooked. He said there are people involved in this that were accused, but none of them are in government today. And many of them are even dead. Now, that's a look on the brighter side of this situation. The government in America especially was corrupted for the last probably 40, 50 years, slowly but surely more and more corruption until we got to a boiling point of maybe like 2000 to 2016 when Trump came in. There were so many corrupt people in government, and the government was just the worst it had ever been in America in terms of taking Americans' freedoms and rights away, just so much fraud and illegal activity going on, and so many other things that those people were bad people. And that was the time frame when all of this was taking place with Jeffrey Epstein. So it's possible that a lot of those people in government or that were accused were in government at those times, but they're not anymore, which is a good sign that the government is finally being cleansed of a lot of the wickedness and evil that's in there. And it's a good thing because it shows that the whole drain the swamp thing is working. Um it's not working as quickly as people would like it to be, but it's gonna take a long time because when you have this is a season of America. When you have so much corruption that slowly but surely creeped into the government over time, decades, it's gonna take decades to reverse that. It just is because there's just too many people who are involved. It's gonna take people, retiring and getting out of that job and giving it up to somebody who's actually a good, noble person that wants to do the right things. It's gonna and those people are gonna get off probably scot-free and go on and live their lives until they die, and then they'll be judged by God for what they did. But some of those people are gonna get away with their crimes. And then it's gonna take some people dying because they're just older and they get aged out. And then again, new people filling those roles, but the good people coming in, and so on and so forth. So the cleansing change agent is going to take a while. It's not going to happen overnight. And I think a lot of people are, especially in the MAGA movement and especially in the niche conspiracy Q movement or whatever that group of people is, are thinking that Trump's going to click a button and all of the people who are corrupt in the government are going to immediately be arrested and charged for their crimes and convicted and thrown in jail for life. That is absolutely not a reality. It's not going to happen, and it's never happened throughout history. So there's no track record of that being a factual scenario for the future of America. What's probably more likely is Trump's going to be in this second term. He's going to really help clean up a lot of the mess that was in government, and then he's going to get out. And then the next person is going to take over, hopefully a Republican. I have my theory as to who I believe that person is going to be. And they're going to continue that legacy of continuing to cleanse, continuing to fix the laws, the rights and injustices that has been bestowed from the government upon the people for countless decades. And then over time, the people are also simultaneously going to come back to God. They're going to live more morally correct lives. Crime will go down, and so on and so forth. And it's going to be a slow but sure chain reaction of things switching back from bad dark times to good times, and then the country will come back and people will feel better and people will be happier, and the good times will you know be revived again. But it's a season that takes time. It's not going to happen overnight, and unfortunately there are going to be some people who have to only go through the bad times because they're at a certain age and they're living through those times, and the next generation is going to get to reap the reward of the good times because of the hard times that the previous generation went to. So it's like a life cycle. It just is. That's the way it is, and it just will be slow but steady process of changing. So that being said, I think that it's, like I said in my previous videos, I think that it's possible that the Epstein stuff does still come out if there is actually stuff to come out. If everything that's come out, besides what's redacted, which is pretty much just the people being accused and the accusers because they're victims, everything else has probably been, maybe not released, and you can find it online on a lot of these resources that I'll try and give you today. But I don't know if anything else is going to come out, and if there's nothing else that can come out, you're probably never going to get the fully unredacted documents because they have people on there that the government wants to protect, and there are a lot of crazy people out there. They might do something stupid because of the reaction to finding out about somebody being on that list as either a victim or the accused. So I understand, Trump's administration in wanting to protect those people from violent people who want to get justice. And really, it's more vengeance. I talked about this in my previous video. It's vengeance, not justice. And a lot of it, too, is just people who are nosy who want to, know, like, yeah, I always knew that actor or politician or somebody was a creep and he's on this list. So I know that he's a bad person and I'm justified in hating him or her or whatever. And, um, you have to do away with that stuff because it's a huge distraction in life. The main goal, like I said in my previous video, should be now for the American people to shift focus from this and put it on how do we protect the children of the future and the present from something like this ever happening again, if it is true that it did happen, which, by the way, is too much around it to where I believe that it's true. I believe that Jeffrey Epstein did this and was involved in a network of, maybe people, maybe a small network, but people who were probably doing things with underage people. So I'm not saying that that didn't happen. What I am saying is that don't get so caught up in the obsession of it all and instead focus on being a light in this world, being a positive influence and example. If you're upset about this, that's fine, but then go out and do something about it in a real way. Don't just sit behind a computer or phone or whatever and read a bunch of stuff online and then, you know, go out and I don't know, just say all these crazy things that you can't prove or back up for sure. Do the research, find the evidence, and then, the people too can petition things for the courts to handle as well. You don't just have to go to the government and hope that they do something. You can also petition the judicial system to do things legally without having to rely on the courts. If you get a class action suit with enough people that demand the evidence of something, you can make progress with that and then put pressure on Congress to put pressure on the government, the president and his administration to actually act on it. So you don't just have to rely on the politicians either, is what I'm also trying to say. But we'll take a look at this now. We're going to jump into quickly just what Trump had to say and then a little bit about what we're going to get into in the document, and then we'll wrap it up. So this is what Trump posted recently about this whole situation. So this is his take on it. What's going on with my boys and in some cases gals. They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein. Over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, Crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration who conned the world with the Russia hoax, 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, and more. It's funny how his name, like, he is such a great marketer. It's unbelievable. He brands and labels everything. They created the Epstein files just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton, Christopher Steele dossier, and that they used on me. And now my so-called friends are playing right into their hands. Why didn't these radical left lunatics release the Epstein files? If there was anything in there that could have hurt the MAGA movement, why didn't they use it? They haven't even given up on the JFK or MLK files, no matter how much success we have had, securing the border, deporting criminals, fixing the economy, energy dominance, a safer world where Iran will not have nuclear weapons. It's never enough for some people. We are about to achieve more in 6 months than any other administration has achieved in over 100 years. And we have so much more. We are saving our country and making America great again, which will continue to be our complete priority. The left is imploding. Kash Patel and the FBI must be focused on investigating voter fraud, corruption, Act Blue, the rigged and stolen election of 2020, and arresting thugs and criminals, instead of spending month after month looking at nothing but the same old radical left inspired documents on Jeffrey Epstein. Let Pam Bondi do her job. She's great. The 2020 election was rigged and stolen, and they tried to do the same thing in 2024. That's what she is looking into as AG and much more. 1 year ago, our country was dead. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Let's keep it that way and not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So it's funny, he wrote that like a company memo. Just such a business mindset, the way he runs the country. Yeah, I can see where he's coming from to a degree. I can see where he's coming from, that he's the type of guy that he works really hard and he does a above and beyond job, better than any president we've had in a very long time, and doesn't want that spotlight being taken away from all the good that he's accomplishing, because that's also how people's minds work. And it sucks because it's this way in business, if you have a job, if you're on your own company. It's this way with family and friends. You could do 10 things right. You could do 10 good things, do them well, and, you know, even great things. But the one thing you do wrong, that's all everybody focuses on. And it's a huge problem in the way that we are um, wired in our default mindset, where we choose to look at the negative. That's why all the news is negative. Good news doesn't get as much coverage because people are constantly fixated and focused on the negative. And it's a lot of reasons it's because they love drama, they think it's interesting and it excites them and it, keeps them from being bored, or they just like to see other people not doing well or going through hard times because it makes them feel better about themselves. There's a whole bunch of reasons, but it's not a healthy way to be. And he is doing countless amazing things that is fixing this country for sure. And if he continues, by the time he's out, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, the repercussions of all that he's done is going to greatly impact America in a major way that will totally turn this country around economically, spiritually, on a community level, many things. But people are focusing on the one thing that he's not giving them. And it's partially his fault because he keeps doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on it. And it's pissing people off. He would be better to just not comment, because it would allude to the idea that he's purposely not releasing stuff, even if there's nothing there, which his base would say, okay, he doesn't want to release it now, but he's going to do it at a later date. So it would sort of like buy him time to have to not deal with that right now. But the fact that he's doubling and tripling down and then he's defending Pam Bondi, there's no talks about him trying to push her out, tells me it's possible that, yes, either it's a cover up or um, there really is not much more there because everything that they have is base level and everything that was really important was destroyed. Because you also have to think about this too. If there was a big conspiracy and they were running this secret network of people who were engaging in a major crime, sexual activities with minors, that network of people is probably going to work at a high level where everything is strategically thought out and there's no paper trail. Think about it. If criminals that sell drugs on the street work where they really make it hard for themselves to get caught by not talking openly about things, but talking in code, not having anything written down, having all kinds of ways of, not tying and connecting these crimes to them. And majority of these criminals, when they get convicted, it's pretty much just they get caught in the act or it's a testimony from an eyewitness. They're not getting hard evidence because they're good at covering their tracks. So if low-level criminals are doing that, what makes you think that high-level criminals at this level, where they have a private island and they take people there on private jets and stuff, you think they have a list that says client list? Here's all these bigwigs' names, and they like this type of young person. It's ridiculous. They would never have that stuff because it would be so incriminating. I think there was actually a true story about this, but it was depicted in the Goodfellas movie from the '90s, Martin Scorsese film, and they all got caught at the end. I don't know if the whole thing's true, but there's elements of it that I think are true. They got caught at the end and they all got tied together in the RICO stuff because there was one guy who was part of the mafia that was keeping records of everything because he thought that the mafia was screwing him. So he wanted to have evidence to be able to take to them and say, actually, no, you owe me this. You're doing that. This guy is screwing me here. He's doing this behind your back. So he was keeping a list of everything. And then when the FBI arrested them and raided their homes and stuff, they found it and it was all incriminating evidence that they used to tie a bunch of people together in the same crime. So I believe a part of that is true, and that's how they use the RICO Act to tie multiple people together. So people at this high level are not going to be operating like that. They're going to keep everything as discreet as possible. They're going to talk in code. They're going to write in code. They're going to make sure that they use aliases and so many other things. They're going to make it extremely difficult for whoever's investigating them to actually tie them to that crime. So there's probably not a client list. If I had to guess, I'd say there's probably not a client list. We know there's the phone book of Jeffrey Epstein that we saw in previous videos that has people's contact information. But again, he claims to be a business person also, aside from this whole situation. And those contacts could be anybody, but also they could just be people that he meets because he mingles in those circles, right? They could be just acquaintances that had no affiliation with him in his legal business or his legal business, but just people that he met. They liked him, he liked them. He said, "Hey, can I have your number?" And they said, "Ah, yeah, sure. All right, you're in this inner circle of rich people, so you're cool." So you don't know if there is anything more, but there's probably just the contacts list, no, no client list, and then flight logs and things like that. But even that stuff is probably it is redacted, but there's probably aliases where they're putting fake names and stuff. So you don't really know if there's more evidence out there. But there's probably not too much more if this is what Trump is saying, where he's doubling and tripling down. I don't think he's tied to this. We will see in a minute that his Mar-a-Lago is tied to this, but I don't think he is because we've seen it. We've seen what we've seen so far, and there's nothing that I've seen that's incriminating him. And there's enough evidence that Also, too, I think he was the person who actually originally called the cops on, or the FBI or whoever, on Jeffrey Epstein, reporting him because of this suspicious activity. So he's definitely tied to this in the sense that he might be on the other side of it, where he's the one that's actually trying to bring this whole thing down, but he's probably not tied into the illegality of it all. Now, that said, there's probably not much more evidence because it was probably destroyed. If there is, if the crimes are true and everything, and there are, major people tied to it, the evidence was probably destroyed because don't forget, a lot of this stuff became part of the judicial system, the public record through the courts under the Obama administration, and even before that, I think maybe as early as the Bush administration, but probably not, although it's possible. But either way, these two politicians, their FBI people working for them at that time could have destroyed a lot of that evidence because it was incriminating certain people. And then by the time Trump got in the first time, most of it was probably already gone, or it was being destroyed during that time that he was in there for the first time, but didn't catch it because it was all new to him. So we really don't know. I have a feeling that if there is anything else to come out, it will come out because nothing stays secret forever. Eventually, everything does come out, and it's only a matter of time. Now, does that happen in the next few months or years or even our lifetime? Nobody knows. Either Trump and his team are telling the truth that this was the big con job, or they have nothing and they can't get us anything, but they know something happened, they just can't prove it, and then they can't say that to the American people because they can't back it up. Or there is stuff and they're not covering up for them. They just simply feel that the American people, like I said in my last video, are not ready yet to have this stuff released because it could be so damning. It could change the country in an instant. Where imagine if like you found out that 40% of all the major companies in America, the heads of those companies, were clients of Jeffrey Epstein and were committing these illegal activities. And 40% of them are the S&P 500 or the top companies in America, right? And also 40% of the politicians in government right now, or previously, but many are still alive. And also, um, all different types of people in different industries, not just Hollywood, but maybe doctors, lawyers, all different types of major people. Could you imagine if that many people were implicated and that information just got released to the public in an instant? You would see the economy tank tomorrow. It would be devastating. We would go into a depression. People would be going crazy. Crime would be through the roof. They'd be rioting the streets. People would be burning things down. It would look worse than any previous protest that we've ever seen. So I do understand if there is more information and they're keeping it from the American people. If the Trump administration is openly and willing, not openly, but willingly keeping that information from the American people, it's probably for that reason. He doesn't want to see all the work that he's doing now and all the work that he's going to do in the future for his last term to be destroyed over one item, one thing. There's a chance that he does release it towards the end of his term, just so that all the good is not, it doesn't hurt what he's doing now, pulling us out of this dark time, getting us back on track, undoing the Biden years. There's a chance that he times it slowly be released even after he's gone. Maybe he puts in, um, a motion where um, everything will be released a little bit every, few years just to not totally devastate the economy for even the next president that takes over after him. Who knows? But I'd say if there is more evidence there and it is damning, it is incriminating. Number one, it doesn't matter if he releases it or not. If it's there, it will go to the courts. They will charge the people that are guilty because they're also victims and they want justice. And those people will be prosecuted whether or not the president likes it or not. His administration can't cover up a crime if the judicial system gets involved. That's the checks and balances of the government. But they haven't done that yet. And the only people to actually get arrested and go to jail for this was Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. No one else. So it's possible they don't have any more evidence on this. But long-winded, we will see what happens. I would say if anything else is out there, like I said in my previous video, it will definitely be coming out at some point in time. I just don't know when. But if not, and Trump's doubling and tripling down on this, it's possible that they don't have anything else because it was destroyed, if there is something that is there, or it never actually existed, and this was an isolated event where Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein were trafficking people, mostly for him and also for several key billionaire and multimillionaire clients, and that evidence was destroyed, and the only thing that remained was enough to tie Epstein and Maxwell and bring them down for the crime. So that's all I'll say on that. And this is probably going to be the last video I do on this, unless something new and damning comes out. But I'm going to just show you this real quick. This is a deposition from Ghislaine Maxwell for her court case, and just sort of show you some of the stuff that they talked about. And if you want to, see it for yourself, like I said, don't forget, comment or DM me and I'll send it to you. So this is the deposition of Ghislaine Maxwell from 2016, I believe. Let me just get to it. In the case of Virginia Giuffre, who recently was killed or committed suicide or something, against her, saying that she trafficked. Virginia was trafficked by Ghislaine into Jeffrey Epstein's network and for sex acts on him also. So I'm not going to go through everything. It's like a 500-page document, but this is the deposition. It's basically the text of the conversation that they had when they deposed her, when the lawyers were asking her questions about this situation. Everything that she says in here is very good in terms of her lawyer really drilled it into her how to respond to these questions in order to not incriminate herself. And you can read that with this. But we'll go to a few key pages. So the lawyer asked her about her job with Epstein, and she said, my job entailed running the homes that he had. But much more importantly, most of the houses had construction. And so whilst in 1992, there was no construction project, there was construction projects that began after that time. And I was in charge not only of hiring architects, I was also in charge of all filings or overseeing that like a general contractor would. So she basically is explaining that she was involved in, you know, things kind of like a project manager. But also, it makes me think that there's a chance that she was involved in the construction of his little house, that little box-like house that was on the Jeffrey Epstein Island. So it's possible that she was there during that time and helped actually construct that home, that or whatever that place is on the island, that everybody is always talking about the island. So then down here, this is the part that I was talking about before. The lawyer asks her, when did you first meet Virginia Roberts? I don't have a recollection of the first meeting. Do you recall meeting her at Mar-a-Lago? Like I said, I don't have a recollection of meeting Miss Roberts. So she goes on to keep denying that she remembers, and they eventually, find an email, and she still denies it, and that's just kind of how she knows how to really work around the lawyer's questions. But he even asks her, are you a member of Mar-a-Lago? And here's the key thing. She said no. Have you visited Mar-a-Lago? Yes. Did you visit Mar-a-Lago in the year 2000? I'm pretty sure I did. So this is probably the extent of her Trump's connection to the Epstein situation. And everybody knows because we've seen videos where he's talking with Jeffrey Epstein. You can't hear what they're saying, but he's probably saying a joke or something. And Epstein laughs and he laughs. And this all takes place at Mar-a-Lago. So we know for a fact already, this is not news, that Epstein was there at Mar-a-Lago. But we also know that Ghislaine was there too, because it's in the deposition as well. And she admitted herself she was not a member. And so this was spoken about in the past. Neither was Jeffrey Epstein, and Trump did not allow him to be a member because he found out shady things about him. So Trump knew that he was maybe not guilty at the time, but there was talk about him being involved in this really creepy stuff. And he might have even been there trying to recruit people. But also, this girl, Virginia Roberts at the time, said that apparently that she told her lawyer that she met them at Mar-a-Lago and they essentially recruited her at Mar-a-Lago. So I think that's the extent of what Trump's involvement is in this in terms of, you know, not guilty by association, but like just the fact that his party hosted one of these situations where somebody was initially contacted or they initially met at his property is probably the most that he's involved in it in terms of that. But again, if you're this type of guy, you're a criminal, you're doing these type of things, you're going to meet people anywhere. If you meet somebody at Starbucks and then convince them to, talk to you later on and then eventually get them to, come to your mansion and do weird stuff, does that make Starbucks guilty just because you met them at there while you were serving coffee and they were ordering it? I mean, that's just so silly. But this is what, I think part of what people were talking about. Trump's not involved, but some of his stuff is because he's just such a big figure. He knew so many people back then. He would have parties where all kinds of people would come to them. Hillary Clinton went to his kid's wedding. I mean, that's just the type. It was either his kid's wedding or his wedding to Melania. I'm not sure, but that's just what happens in these high level, high society groups is they will invite people they're not even friends with to something just because of the notoriety of it. It's a different world than when you don't have money or fame and things like that. You operate differently. You pretty much just invite people that you know or people that you know, and then maybe they bring someone. These people go out of their way to invite people they don't know just because that person's rich or famous. So it's a different world. And then this is just some of the stuff that they talked about and how she sort of, weaved around these questions. He kept asking her over and over again if has she ever observed a female under the age of 18 at Jeffrey Epstein's home that was not a friend, a child, one of your friend's children? Again, I can't testify to that because I have no idea what you're talking about. So they ask a question that's a pretty clear question. But again, lawyers are really good at this. They're good at taking words and manipulating them, where you have to define each and every single word and then also define the words collectively together in the sentence as to what the meaning is. What are you truly asking? And there's a way to always work around any sentence by just claiming that you don't understand what the combination of those words together collectively mean. It's a really, really annoying thing that lawyers do, but it's good when they're on your side because it might, help you navigate around something. It's bad when they're not on your side because they do the same thing, the opposite way. So yeah, this is just the type of stuff that, would go on in this deposition is basically just her skirting, answering any question, and then keep, claiming that she doesn't understand what the question means, what they're talking about, even though it's a pretty straightforward question. You could see the lawyers get a little frustrated from time to time. It's kind of funny. But he said, you have no idea what I'm talking about in the sense that you never observed a female under the age of 18 at Jeffrey Epstein's home. That was not one of your friend's children. Is that correct? And she said, and of course the lawyer chimes in, but she said, how would I possibly know how someone is when they are at this house? You are asking me to do that. I cannot possibly testify that. As far as I'm concerned, everyone who came to his house was an adult professional person. So again, you say things like adult professional person. What does that mean? What does an adult mean in that person's mind? Because also different states in America classify adults as different ages. Some legal age of consent is 16. Some states it's 17. Most states it's 18. So that person could say in their mind, I don't consider this person to be a child because they're not a little kid running around playing with a rattle and a binky. But in their mind, they're not saying that out loud to the lawyer. They're saying, no, no, they were an adult, but that's your definition of what an adult is. So also too, like professional person, meaning the job that they had or the fact that they were a professional person in the sense that they were professional escorts or whatever you want to call them. Because in that sense, they are professional people, but it's the way that they word it that throws you off and doesn't really actually answer the question. It's very much like a politician. So there's a lot of that in this deposition. I'm not getting into it. It's a very long document, but like I said, if you want to, see it for yourself, you can actually read it on this one specifically is courthousenews.com. And then there's also the Jeffrey Epstein files from cbp.gov. This is the Customs and Border Protection. There's a bunch of Jeffrey Epstein records here. And then you've got the letter from Pam Bondi that she wrote to Kesh Patel saying that there was additional evidence back in February. And you've got a bunch of other documents as well. The documents that she dropped that I also talked about on a previous podcast. And I think I gave the links to that in the past. You also have this one from vicourts.org, judicial branch of the U.S. Virgin Islands. So there's a lot of different ones available for the documents that we know of. But anyway, that's my follow-up take on this. This will probably be, like I said, the last video I'll do on this Epstein stuff because there's a lot already on the internet about it. But just, read the deposition for yourself, read the court documents, read the files that were released by Pam Bondi earlier this year, and you will see there's really not that much there. But again, this could go either way. Maybe, and I'm not saying one way or another. I'm not saying there is nothing else out there. I'm not saying there is not anything else out there. So we don't really know. I just feel like if there is more stuff out there and it's still available, it hasn't been destroyed, then Trump is probably not releasing it for many reasons. He doesn't want to tank his economy that he's building and set us back. Sometimes you have to think about the greater good. Yes, children are absolutely important, but there's ways to safeguard against things like this ever happening again without also blowing up the economy in the process. So I'm not saying which one's the right thing to do. That's obviously up to the Trump administration to decide how they want to handle that because they're the ones in office now. And if you're not happy with that, you go run for office, and then when you win, you could do it how you want. But for people to get so crazy online and upset with him and the administration for not doing what they want is just kind of foolish. Sometimes you just have to be patient and wait if that thing is meant to be. And sometimes also too, God doesn't always want everything getting out to the public because not everybody needs to know everything all the time. Some stuff is better just not known because it's just too much for people to handle. So we really don't know, but fight for the children, fight for the people who are actually the guilty parties to have justice served, but don't fight to have everything go your way all the time. Otherwise, you're going to be angry and you're going to be obsessed and it's going to keep you up at night and it's not worth it. You have a life to live. You have a mission from God that you have to pursue and you have to continue to fulfill. Focus on being light in the world, be the good in the world, and do things that are going to benefit humanity. Don't get so caught up in conspiracies, especially if they don't have any direct connection to you, because it could be a huge time suck and you might look back and regret saying, I can't believe how involved I was in that thing and it really had no bearing or positive benefit on my life. And I didn't help one child, even though I was screaming at the top of my lungs, the children, the children. So think about that. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Like I always say, helps the channel grow. Put in the comments any topics that you want me to do for future videos. I will definitely look into doing that. And any guests that you'd like me to have, let me know. I will check them out and see if they're a fit for the channel. But that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. All right, everybody. I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this There's a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son, and it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. You know, we highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, buy a children's book as a gift. Definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state, and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throwing your own, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, put on a better party. Health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop. And these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodssoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag and it says free and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms, Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post. and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future, and I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.